Welcome to Good News District with Sam Muyaka, where we discuss leadership insight, next generation perspective, and cultural discussion through a biblical lens.
Hey, what's up? My name is Pastor Sam, and welcome to the Good News Podcast. Here today, I have someone who's very special, someone who holds a world record, and you might have seen me post about this guy, but he's an amazing guy. And before I take up any time, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce Pastor Matt Bostic.
Man, thank you, buddy. It's an honor to be here.
What's going on, man? You look tired.
Yeah. Man, I'll be honest, I love coming out here.
Hey, come on.
I was here last week.
Yeah.
And then went back to Montgomery, came back. I'm coming back a week from Friday. I just
awesome.
can't get enough of the Church International, Lifehouse, the Sturmer family. Love all of them to death.
That's awesome.
Love you, and I'm happy to be here, man.
That's awesome. This has been a few months in the works. We've talked about doing this podcast, and I don't know how long, how many times, for a while.
It's been a minute.
We are here. So I've got a few questions that I want to ask you because, and we're going to get to the world record in a second, but I just want to ask about who is Matt Bostic. Come on, take me to Matt Bostic growing up and where we are now.
You know, I grew up, Pastor Sam, in Indiana, which was known for two things, farming and basketball. So I only knew pigs and shooting hoops growing up. Indiana is very flat. There's nothing special about it other than farming, bunch of cornfields, and really playing basketball. I was talking to a lady this morning. She was interviewing me, and she was asking me about Indiana. And it's funny because, the landscape's kind of boring, compared to other places where we've lived. But I do miss the small community, the one middle school, the one high school. Everybody on Friday nights, the whole town would shut down. They'd all go to the local basketball game. And so as a kid, I couldn't wait to play varsity basketball, to be out there on the court in front of the whole town, wear the warm-ups and have that Greensburg Pirate uniform on. And that was me as a kid, man. Just had a goal. I always wanted to be the best free throw shooter on every team that I was on from 5th grade until really even in college. Just took a lot of pride and passion. I wasn't very fast, so I wanted to be a good shooter. So that was my childhood, man, farming and basketball. And then I got a scholarship to go play basketball in college.
Come on. Were you ever youth pastor? I think I read that, right?
Yeah,
okay.
So when I got married, I played basketball, met my wife in college. She was the statistician on the basketball team. That was her college scholarship. So it was her and 12 dudes on this team, and I won. I won out, man. We became best friends during those years, and we ended up getting engaged, got married, and started youth pastoring and coaching basketball right out of college.
How old were you at this time?
22.
22. So you was coaching. Was you at a school that you was coaching?
I was. So much like here at TCI, her dad was the principal of a Christian school.
Gotcha.
And so I came out there, youth pastor, taught high school Bible, and coached basketball right out of college.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me this. Let's focus on basketball for a second.
Yeah.
Tell me this. What made you say, you know what, I want to, I know it was a small town.
Yeah.
But was that a friend? Were you watching it on television? Was it Reggie Miller?
I love Reggie Miller growing up.
What made you say, you know what, I actually want to play basketball and thrive and actually get better at it?
Yeah. So a guy came to and did a camp for us when I was in 7th grade. His name was Steve Alford. He was the best shooter in the state of Alabama. He played at Indiana University, went on to the pros, won a gold medal on the Olympic team, and everybody kind of wanted to be Steve Alford. And he wore number 12 in college, so I wore number 12 my whole life, And so he taught free throw shooting once in the summer of 7th grade, and he said that the best free throw shooters in the world have the same routine when they go to the foul line. And so I adopted his. Before the referee would hand him the ball, he'd wipe off his socks, wipe off his shorts, get the ball, dribble it 3 times, bend his knees, exhale, and shoot. And to this day, that is my routine.
Come on.
They say at that age that kids at that age are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression.
Yeah.
And it did. And it stuck with me. Here I am, 50 years old. I still imitate that guy, in the way that I shoot. And so, that was me growing up. You get an idol, you get someone that you want to be like, and you do the things that he did to try to have the things that he has.
Come on. Wow. Yeah. Amazing. And how's your faith has played a role in all of this?
Yeah.
Take me to a time where you maybe you was using basketball to be able to reach other students and take you to a point in time where your faith and basketball kind of play a role into what you do, who you are, and your passions?
It wasn't until I was a sophomore in college, my mom died of cancer.
Okay.
During the season, it was the first kind of tragedy that I faced, kind of a PTSD moment for me where faith kind of collided with what I thought about God was completely ripped away from me. My mom was perfectly healthy one minute. We pray over her, asking God to take the cancer away. He doesn't. She dies.
Yeah.
And after we buried her April 27th, June 1, I'm on an airplane going to the Philippines to play a 40-game season over in Asia with a Christian organization called Mission Increase. Sports Ambassadors. That team was called Sports Ambassadors. And that was the first time where, man, I was contemplating a lot about God, my faith. Honestly, had a lot of questions about about God. And but I was away from everything. This is before cell phones and the internet. This is 1995. So I'm away from everything that's comfortable to me.
Yeah.
And all I have is the game of basketball and sharing my faith at every game. So we would go play a game, and then at halftime we would share our testimony.
Okay.
And death is very scary to the Asian culture. And so they wanted me to share about my mom, even though she died, because she knew Jesus, she was in heaven. So I was sharing. We played 40 games, so I would share my testimony 40 times that summer. That was very pivotal for me.
Yeah.
Where first time I read the Bible all the way through, from cover to cover in the days that I was over there playing in Asia. And that's where my faith really was tested, but also kind of came alive a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. In Asia.
Yeah, Philippines, man, it was
Wow.
awesome. Philippines, Hong Kong, and China. We played a 40-game season in 100 days. We played 40 games.
100
so
days.
we were getting after it, yeah.
Come on. Was this like mission based? Was this a career?
It was. I had to try out for the team, but we made it. And it was just, like I said, basketball and my faith kind of intersected. And I realized, man, you can use the game of basketball, doing something that you love for somebody or something that you love. And I found this passion bucket kind of stirred inside of me.
Come on.
With it.
That's awesome. And you've used this a few times.
Yeah.
Let's go through all the time that you've, breaking a record or holding a record. And
it's funny you say that because, I'm coaching basketball out of college and then, youth pastoring. And then I resigned from pastoring. I just had enough. I was burnt out. The things, it's funny that Pastor Mark teaches me now about being holistic, healthy, none of those things were going on in my life. I was putting the ministry before my wife and all the things that you don't do. I was just writing chapter after chapter on how not to start out your marriage and ministry, right? I've written the book on how not to do that through trial and error, more error. And so I ended up resigning one day. I went and took an office job in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And so I'm doing this job for like 6 months, driving to D.C., wearing a shirt and tie every day, and I'm miserable. I'm out of coaching. I'm out of ministry, and I'm just driving to and from work trying to make money. And that fall, we went home to Indiana to visit my dad. We were pregnant with our fourth child.
Okay.
Had 3 girls at the time. We're pregnant with our first son. So I went home to Indiana to tell my dad we're going to have a boy and kind of celebrate Thanksgiving with them. And I went and visited my mom's grave that day and kind of reminiscing about my childhood, and back in my hometown when I really, Pastor Sam, don't have a bad memory growing up. Both parents loved Jesus. They thought the world of me. My dad had a sign that hung in his room that I would see every night going to my bedroom that said, "My son's an All-American."
Come on.
And so he just believed in me. My 2 parents had just said they convinced me I could do anything if God was behind it. And so I'm back home in my hometown now, and I'm miserable. I got a job that I don't feel qualified to do. I don't want to do it. I'm visiting my mom's grave, just reminiscing about childhood when things were good. So that night back at my dad's house, I can't sleep. And so I'm thumbing through his books on this bookshelf, and I come across the Guinness Book of World Records. And I'm reading through it. It's 3 a.m, and I'm coming across different stories of guys that juggle tennis balls around fire. And one guy had disassembled an airplane and ate it, like all these crazy stuff. Yeah, the Guinness Book's crazy, right? There's all these things. Then I read about a guy that made 6,000 3-point shots, basketball, in 24 hours. Okay. And I couldn't sleep. I started doing the math in my head. I thought, man, if I make 400 every 55 minutes, I do that 24 hours in a row, I can be, I can set a world record. So the next morning we're driving back to Maryland with my wife and my 3 daughters, and I won't shut up about it. I'm talking to my wife about all this, and she stops me and she says, "You haven't had this much life since I met you in college." And I said, "And we're going to name the foundation Shoot for Life."
Yeah.
And That's how it all
Wow,
started. So
wow.
we get back, and I had this dream of starting a foundation in honor of my mom called Shoot for Life, and I trained for 6 months and thought I'd had this crazy idea to break a world record. And so that's how the first record came about. And my son, we named him after that. He's the fourth kid, but his name's Trey.
Okay.
After the three-point shot.
Come on, man.
So that's how it all started in 2006.
So, how many shots did you make on the three?
So I made
points?
6,272 three-point shots in 24 hours.
Right at the mark, or like way before?
I beat it by 51, and that's how old she was when she died. So I did 51 more shots in honor of her, and called it quits and used that. Man, what a great platform! I had no idea what God would do with that.
Yeah.
I started getting asked to speak in prisons and schools, and I started using, the Lamb's Book of Life, that book to be in versus the Guinness Book. And so that's what when I would go speak at a school or whatever, I would tell them, hey, man, it's great to be in the Guinness Book, but when I die, that thing ain't going with me.
Yeah.
The Lamb's Book of Life, Revelation 20 is the one that, that's the one you want to have your name in. So that was kind of the platform God gave me to start speaking and using the Guinness Book to, make Jesus famous. So.
Dude, that is amazing. That is amazing. And then after that, you go and tell me a story about the second one that you were like, I've got to beat this one too.
So I moved to Alabama to start Shoot for Life Foundation. My sister had started a real estate company, and I was out, I knew I wanted to get back in ministry. It was a great opportunity to leave Maryland, bring all my kids out to some new place in Alabama. And I believe a change of pace and place oftentimes is a change of perspective.
Come on,
God kind of given me that. And so we move everybody out to Alabama. We start the Shoot for Life Foundation, and I get a phone call one day, and I see on the caller ID Nebraska. And I thought, I never had a chance to speak in Nebraska. This is great. And so the guy answered the phone. He's like, hey, Matt, just want to let you know I beat your world record the other night.
No.
And that's what I said.
No.
What? You're calling me? Because Guinness Book, they won't tell you. There's no phones with Guinness Book. And once you break a world record, you can use the logo the rest of your life. And so whether you're the current or you're a world record holder,
It's
you're
like
kind of
president.
You're kind of in their
like
family.
A president. You're going to be a president until you die.
You're in the family. But something when I got off the phone thought,
No way.
I'm going to beat him.
No way.
I'm going to do it again, And so I call him back a week later and say, I'll let you know something, Cody. I'm going after your record. So then I beat him, and then a month later he beats me again.
No way.
And so we had this thing going back for a couple of years. And so the second time that I did it was really just, I had that competitive itch again to do it. And so that was the second time I did a 3-point record. That's what that was for.
I'm kind of like you. I'm really chill until I feel like someone is really testing like my ability to do something.
I was just fine.
At that time, if I'm just telling you, it's just all limits are off. Like I am going to make sure I'm going to do my best. No, I'm going to do what's necessary.
Right. To get it done.
Yeah, I'm going to get it done.
I know. I thought I'd never do it again until he said that. And all of a sudden I was like, hey man, you can do this one more time.
It's a competitive spirit right there.
Yeah. So that was the reason, for the second one. And I got back into youth pastoring after that. Started working for a church, and then did that for a few years. And then honestly, man, the bottom fell out in my life. I hit rock bottom in my 40s. And the game of basketball didn't matter to me at that point. I had run into something that was more powerful than me, and an addiction, and found myself separated from my wife, all my kids, living alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, and starting my life over from the beginning. And that was obviously one of the worst seasons of my life. Now, I wouldn't trade it now for where God has us, and that's the sovereignty and the grace of God, man. If you can just, no matter where you find yourself today, if you can find the strength to say, God, would you breathe life back into this? He'll do it. Yeah. He's the author of breathing life into dead things and making them come alive again. I was thankful that he did that for me in that season. And I was able to start putting my life together just one step at a time, which led us to Lifehouse, and combining Shoot for Life and Lifehouse. My wife and I had gotten about a couple years sobriety under my belt. We were going to Church of the Highlands. And God spoke really clear to both of us that, hey, we should save up $500 to pay 5 guys that struggled like I did, pay them one day $100 each just to go bless a widow, but also give back to them.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
we were going to do it for one day. And here we are, 5 years later.
5 years later.
Still doing it.
Come on. So, now, okay, talk to me about that. You and your wife, God called you to that ministry. How did it go? Was it Shoot for Life? Was that?
It was called Shoot for Life Sober Living. But at that time, we were just going to do it for one day. So I asked 5 guys to show up at my house. We had to save $500. That's all we had in savings. But we wanted to give it back. God just was, to both of us, give it all away to these guys for one day. Had no idea why. Yeah. And so that morning, I couldn't wait to meet these 5 guys that were going to show up at my house. And 19 people show up, all expecting $100 and so fired up to go to work. And I am $1,400 short. Come on. And I tell Andrea, I'm like, she's like, there's 19 people here. I said, I know. She said, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. It's kind of God's problem at this point. He told us to do it. We got to be faithful. And so we turned them all loose to work. It was the neighbor next door to me. She was a widow. And we were helping her. And so we got 19 people pressure washing, cutting trees down, painting her house, cutting her grass, doing all this stuff. It's so much fun, but I'm like, how am I going to pay these guys, So at 11:30, I go to pick up the food for them, and my phone rings. And this guy says, hey, Matt, when you painted that medical building for me 6 months ago, and I interrupt, I said, oh, you've already paid me for that, man. I'm super busy. I got a lot going on today. I said, we're good. And he goes, no. Did you paint the ceiling and the walls or just the trim? I said, well, I painted just the walls. He said, man, I drove all the way over. I got a check for you. And I said, how much is that check for?
No.
He said, $1,400.
Come on, man.
Yeah. So I knew at that point I was talking to Jesus on the other end of the phone, right?
Absolutely.
And so I drive over and meet him, gave him a hug. He's probably thinking, what is wrong with this guy? I'm crying, bro, because I know I've just met Jesus, right? And so I go cash this check, and I've got $1,400 to pay them. And that was the beginning of so many miracles that have led me to Pastor Mark and Lifehouse. But that was the first step in God saying, hey, you just be faithful. Yeah. And you keep doing this, and I'm going to show up. And so we ended up hiring the first 5 that we had originally invited over to work for Andrew and I. We were doing painting and landscaping. Okay. And so those 5, that was September 1st. By December 23rd, we had 70 people that needed a job or a place to live. Jesus. And they were all hanging around us.
So where are you housing all this man?
So Andrew and I were going to these same people that we're painting for. We realized they can't get anybody to rent their house. So me and Andrea were signing leases on these houses, the 2 of us. Like, we don't know what we're doing, bro. I'm still just being faithful. God just keeps telling me to say yes to them. And so we just keep saying yes. We've got 70 people stashed around Montgomery. We're getting them jobs. They're all coming to our house on Sunday nights for a Bible study. We're all going to Church of the Highlands in the morning. They're coming to our house, trying to figure out how to get them to work and get them fed. And it's Pastor Dino Rizzo. On December 23rd, we threw a Christmas party for them at Highlands, and Dino comes to speak to everybody. He says, hey, man, there's a guy doing what you and Andrew are trying to do, and you're being faithful. But he said, there's a guy that's been doing it for 25 years in Louisiana.
Doing it better.
Named Mark Sturmer. And I think he's going to add a lot of value to your life. Because Dino could tell, bro, I was...
Absolutely,
I mean, we were seeing people get saved, and we were seeing all these things, but he could tell.
And he's got a way of just like telling you, like...
In the nicest way.
I just want to listen to the Lord. I just want to talk to you for a second.
Bro, you're doing so good. There's a guy.
Yeah, there's just somebody. And
he's so good at that.
And you're doing so good. You're being so faithful. But...
And honestly, bro, in December when he told me that, it went in one ear and out the other. I mean, I thought I knew the name Mark Sturmer in Lifehouse, but bro, ministry, I was breathing again. Sure. And I thought, man, we do need structure, but man, I got to get this guy to work Monday. You know how it goes. And so months go by. So 60 days later, we're at Highlands still, and it was during COVID, so I got asked to go preach in a prison outside the walls. I could bring all the guys with me. So we're on an 18-wheeler bed truck preaching Jesus. Okay. I bring this guy with me named Brandon to hear the gospel. He was living in one of our houses. This was on a Sunday night. Monday night, we take him to Highlands. We were going through what's called Freedom on Monday night. So Brandon, that Monday night, accepts Jesus right there in Freedom Group. I get a phone call that night from a different recovery group. It says, hey, Matt, in one of your rental houses, do you have a bed open for a guy? He's off his medication, but will you house him for a couple nights? Called couching him until we can get him in somewhere. The pastor side of me, again, with no experience, says, yes, sure, come on in. Well, that Wednesday, so 48 hours later, a tornado comes through Montgomery, knocks all the power out. Brandon and this guy get in a fight. And that guy ends up killing Brandon, and he murders him in one of our rental houses. And I get a phone call at 3 a.m. Hey, man, I think Brandon's going to die. They got in a fight. He's been stabbed. And so I go up there, and sure enough, long story short, Brandon passes away. And when I get the news that he's dead, I hear the name Mark Sturmer and Dino Rizzo, because now my life's turned upside down.
Yeah.
And here I am trying to do all these good things for the Lord, but I was missing the wisdom that Dino had said. And there were some other Dinos that came by and said, hey, man, you're going too fast, bro. You better slow down. And so I called Pastor Mark. I look him up online. I'm like, oh, my gosh, he's got campuses all over the place, and there's no way I'm going to be able to get out and see him this quick. And I'll never forget this. I call him on the phone, and he says, yeah, Pastor Dino said you might be calling me. And I tell him what's going on. He says, well, what are you doing this weekend? And I said,
absolutely.
What?
Yep.
He said, come out, man.
Yep.
And so, I get emotional thinking about it. So I drive. I was so worried about my life and Andrea and what we were going to do. And I drive out here and spend the weekend with him. And on the way home, he says, hey, man, when you get back, let me sit on your board of directors. Let me help you relaunch Shoot for Life. And you're going to need my wisdom and experience. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so driving home, man, God spoke really clear again. Take your name off this. Come under his authority.
Come on.
One of the best things we've ever did, man. It's one of the best things that the gift that God gave us in Pastor Mark Sturmer to look at me and say, I see value in you. You're going to make it. Yep. You can do this again, but with a family. They say that God puts the lonely in families in Psalms, and that is what happened between me and Mark Sturmer. And I call him back, and I say, man, I want to be on your team. I need you, your shepherd. I need you to shepherd us. And he came back out to Montgomery, and that's what we did, man. We formed a friendship, a partnership, and here we are now. 4 years later, we got 3 campuses in the state of Alabama, and I'm a part of the Lifehouse family that I love passionately. And so that's how we got here today.
Amazing. We're about to transition to speaking about the record, but before we do that, you just say something powerful. And I know there might be some people watching here. They're like, okay, who's this Mark Sturmer that he's talking about? But you say something, and I'm gonna pause a second and just kind of give honor what honor is due. But you mentioned that you had a lot of zeal, but not a lot of wisdom in that moment. Let's speak to number one. I'm gonna let you share, and then I'll share my experience as well. I'm just gonna let you share just about who Pastor Mark is for those who's watching, and then, but also I want to talk about you talk about coming under authority. There's a generation that's coming up, because I see that all the time as a youth and young adult pastor, where we don't want accountability. We don't want to be under no one's authority. Because we have all these creative ideas and zeal and energy. Speak to that for a second, just how powerful it is to have someone who you are under edge of protection in their prayer. And speak specifically about Pastor Mark and Cindy. Because I think the world needs to know, and I know he would never say this on camera. Never. But I think the world needs to know the heart that he has.
Yeah. A lot of people think that if you have a authority figure over you that you're going to be restricted and you can't do the things that you want to do. And it's the furthest from the truth. You can have that and more, but with spiritual protection.
Come on.
And walking under the authority and the power of God with someone that sees your blind spots and says, no, you should do this. And, to have that, I was missing it in my life and didn't even know it. But now I'm at the age now that no matter what would happen in my life as far as work or whatever, I'll go find a boss.
Absolutely.
And be over me. I'm going to find someone that's over me that I can go to and say, am I seeing this right?
That's right.
Am I going too fast? Because I have blind spots, right? And spiritual authority is to point that out in a loving way, give you guardrails so that you can be the most successful.
Absolutely.
And so Pastor Mark was like that for me. I look at what we've been able to accomplish. We could have never done this on our own, Andrea and I, right? And now we get to do it 10 times as powerful, touch 10,000 more lives, and get to do it with family. They become family to me. And He's the greatest shepherd, and he would never admit
Facts.
that.
Absolutely.
If you look up the word Google when we get to heaven and you Google shepherd,
He is
Pastor
gonna be
Mark's
right
going to be there. He's the ultimate shepherd. I'm holistically healthy today because of the rhythms he's put in my life.
Yeah.
And, every week that we sit down for our meeting, he's put something in place in the last 4 years of my life where I have to be home. I get to be home 3 nights a week having dinner with my family. It's something that it's a rhythm that he's put in place to, even though I was out here last week, right? And I'm out here this week, but I'm home 3 nights with my wife and my kids. And so I mentioned earlier on being unhealthy in ministry. Those kind of things were not on my radar.
That's right.
I just wanted to, how big can the youth group get? How many people can get saved? And my family's going to hell, meanwhile, my marriage and my kids. But I'm doing it all in the name of Jesus, where Pastor Mark's flipped that script and constantly concerned about the health of his flock and me and Andrea. And that's meant the world to us.
Come on. Same for me and my wife, man. We've... I tell people all the time, just the greatest pastor that I know is Pastor Mark. I have submitted myself under his leadership.
Yeah.
And that's very big for someone to openly say that, because if we're not careful, we begin to blame people for permission that we didn't give them in life.
Wow.
So for an example, what usually happens a lot with young leaders or just young people in general, we try to do life on our own because, everybody's telling us we're good enough, we're talented. And listen, no mistake, the most talented generation ever.
Ooh, man.
Right. You talk about creativity, just the weight, resource, anything that they want to do is right there. They can do it. But there's a difference between knowing how to do something and having the wisdom to be able to do it in a proper manner.
Yeah.
Here's what I understood earlier on, and I think it's placed so greatly in my life, is that I understood that anyone who, my pastors or my leaders, anyone who's over me, they can't pastor me well until I give them permission to be able to hold me accountable in my life and to speak into my life. And how do I do that as a person who has leaders? Is I open up my life and be honest with them so they can pastor me well. I think insanity is thinking that I can't tell my leaders what's happening in my life, and somehow they're just supposed to figure out because they're my leaders. And one thing that we have to figure out is this: as busy as I am, Pastor Mark is probably twice as busy. Right. So therefore, I need to make time to, hey, here's what's happening in my life. I need some wisdom. And whenever you begin to open up your life and actually sit under someone's authority and then let them, this is what gives me so much ease to be able to do that. Yeah. Because I've seen the time that he puts in with God. Yeah. So it's not smart for me to ask someone who puts in the same time I put in with God. Right. To be over me. Right. But someone who's put in more time. Right. Oh, it's easy. Oh, yeah. It's easy. Yeah. Because I know for sure that he's spending so much time to be able to pastor me well. And I don't know if I've seen anyone who so disciplined when it comes to spending time with God. And never have. I don't know. And I've been around ministry for a long time, and I've never, even this morning, he and I met, and he's teaching me 2 or 3 things he's doing new now to just stay healthy, and it's constantly challenging me in a good way. Absolutely. And that just fires me up, and it wants, I want to be a kingmaker because of that. Like, I want to serve him and be a part of him because he just, he sets the bar so high for us to continue to hear God's voice, be healthy. He's taking ice baths. He's up super early reading his Bible. He's constantly meditating in every situation that he's in. Even during the world record event a few weeks ago when y'all are out there, he's shepherding me, and he's constantly just looking out on my behalf. And I just love that about him. And you don't know it works until you do it. Right. But sometimes when Pastor Mark is God telling you things that he's doing what you should do, you're crazy. You're like, what? Yeah. You what? And and then you go, let me just give it a try. You go, okay, all right, all right, buddy. Yeah. All right. All right. So that's Pastor Mark. So Pastor Mark has had the Lifehouse at that time for 25 years, right? Yep. 25 years has been doing the Lifehouse for a long time. Yeah. Changed so many lives. And then you get to meet Pastor Mark, and you've been, I would say, you've been such an incredible part of where the Life House is going now. Just like new building, we had some campuses in Louisiana, now we have in Alabama, and I just see it taking over all over the place. And the kind of transition to what we was a part of history,
right?
Let's come on, talk me through when you first was like, I want to go for this record.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just talk me through just the mindset of like even like thinking about that, because it's insane.
Yeah, Pastor Mark and I were talking one day. I'd read an article where 22,000 people went back into prison last year, and recidivism's at an all-time high, 80%. And he and I were talking. I said, man, I'd love to make 22,000 free throws, in honor of those, guys and women that went back in. And, of course, if he'd have said no, I wouldn't have done it, right? I wouldn't even thought about it. He's like, man, let's do it. Okay. You train for it. And so, again, spiritual authority, right?
Yeah.
If he says do it, I'm doing it. Absolutely. He said, man, let's do it. Let's bring awareness. And so that gave me all of the encouragement and motivation that I needed, with him giving me the green light to train and do that. Because that can bring you into spiritual attack too. If you that's the other thing, authority is so good, it protects you.
Talk
right?
about it.
I want to walk under protection of God, and he's my barometer, right? So we started training for it to make 22,000. I wanted to obviously set the old record, and beat that. And so that was the premise behind it. And, the day of, thank you for coming out. I've had so many people watch that show. Yeah. And the reach from the 24-hour show that you all put on. I mean, I've had people from all over the country that day showing me where they were at, watching you like update and kind of narrate that whole, you stayed up and you preached and you're a warrior, bro. This guy preaches the night before, drives out to Alabama, stays up with me for 36 hours, drives back, preaches on Sunday.
2 services, and he got youth after that.
You MC a 24-hour marathon show that I know is way more. I mean, trying to stay up's hard enough. I think it's worse for you all that had to rebound or shoot from the camera, because you all were falling asleep over there.
Absolutely.
So I was so thankful for, again, the TCI family that came out, made it so professional. I've had so many people say, I had no idea. It looked like a show that TNT produced. Absolutely. With the commercials amazing. And
Kevin Dale, shout out to Kevin Dale.
Oh, Kevin Dale, my guy. That was an amazing. He had 14 GoPros all around the gym. And
I love his heart. He's just a servant.
Yeah. So that was the premise. That's why we did it. Yeah. And did it so Pastor Mark's thing is excellence, and we tried to pull that off with excellence. Absolutely. People that were tuning in to see, a Lifehouse story maybe while I'm shooting, or a commercial or video or whatever. We wanted to do it with excellence, but that was why we did it. And it was a great event. I'm glad you were there to see what all goes on shooting for 24 hours straight.
That was a lot of shots. Tell me this, how long did it take for you to train?
So I trained for 5 months. And so no matter where I was at 6 days a week, I was going to commit to 2 to 3 hours a day of at least doing something to prepare my mind for what was going to take place in 24 hours.
Okay, what does this preparation look like? Is it gym? I mean, you're going to gym?
So
what are you working out?
On a typical day when I'm at home, so I'm doing probably 2 hours in the morning of lifting and some kind of cardio, and then usually either shooting at night or another gym session or cardio session. When I'm traveling, like this summer, Pastor Mark and I were preaching in Yuma, Arizona, right? I'd flown all day. I think we had played golf and then preached at 2 prisons, and we get back to the hotel at 11 o'clock. He's like, all right, man, I'm going to bed. He's like, where are you going? I'm like, I got to go to the gym.
Yeah, I got to go shoot.
I had to go to the gym and lift just for the mental discipline of I got to do it today to keep building this inner resume of confidence to know that when hour 16 hits, I've put the work in. It was more mental than just, yes, I could have skipped a workout that night, but I needed to mentally go
prepare
to that gym at midnight, extremely tired after preaching all day and traveling, just to shock my body and give me the confidence to do it.
Come on. And then when does it become real? Like in week of?
Yeah,
the week of. Because, you know, the months before, you lifting, you kind of have it on your mind, but there's some excitement to it.
There is.
But when does it, okay, all right.
Yeah.
This is about to happen.
I couldn't sleep the 2 nights before, you're ready to go. You're as in shape as you're going to get. I'm just going to be as accurate as I'm going to get. I put the work in. So now for 2 nights, I got to go to bed and do nothing and just think about what's about to happen on Friday night. So Wednesday and Thursday were miserable. Couldn't wait to get Friday here just to get going, and then to have all y'all, your family to me, show up and do the show. And it was awesome to get it started.
How many shots were you making for to prepare, like on a weekly base, on a daily base?
Yeah, so I would try to do, if it's a shooting day, which was every other day, I would try to make, about 2,000 to 3,000, free throws. I didn't want to ever go more than, a 4 or 5 hour day. I'm going to be 50, so I didn't want to injure myself, and I knew that it was going to be a battle either way. I knew my body was going to fall apart. And it did, and someone asked me earlier today, when did you know, like when you started the record?
I was actually going to ask you that.
Yeah. So when did you know it was going to be a battle this time? And it was hour 2.
Come on, man.
So I make 1,040 minutes hour 1. Hour 2, I make 1,040 minutes, but I could tell my shoulder started to hurt.
It's starting to hurt a little bit.
Yeah, my brother actually came over. He counted every shot for me. He knew because he's been there with the other ones. Sure. He came back in that little tent green room that we had where I could get away for, in between hours. And he's like, we're in trouble, aren't we? I said, we are, man. It's going to be a long night because we still have 22 more hours to go. And so I knew then.
Not only that, what time did you wake up the day of?
8 o'clock in the morning. I just couldn't sleep.
Yeah, so you waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning. The event doesn't start until 3. Yeah, and it goes from 3 to 3. So
almost up 2 days.
Yeah,
by the time I went to bed, it was day and a half of no sleep, and then of course shooting and being awake for 24 hours. And it's really like doing 24 hours of cardio, high intensity cardio. Yeah. And that was the hard part for me mentally was knowing, I'm already struggling. It's hour 2, my heart rate's up. I've got 22 more hours of this. And so then you start doing the mental gymnastics.
Sure.
And that'll crush you quicker than anything. Yeah. Our minds are so powerful. And my mind was already telling me you can't do this at hour 2.
Hour 2. So here's the thing. Okay, your mind is telling you hour 2 you can't do it.
Yeah.
Are you listening to it? Or
because I'm human. So I'm listening to it, but then I'm listening to, thank God, Pastor Mark's there, Jeffrey's there, my wife's there, all the people that I love are there.
Yeah, sure.
And they're rebounding, and then why I'm doing it. Yeah, if I didn't have the why behind, if I was just doing it for Matt to break a world record, I'd have been out hour 3.
Come on.
I just wouldn't have the motivation to do it, but I kept thinking about the 22,000 people that need a Lifehouse. The why kept me stepping back up to the free throw line hour 3 and hour 4, and then my back went out hour 14.
Yeah.
And then I had to double down on that why again because I was wanting to go home and go to bed.
No, absolutely. I got you. So the goal was
22,000.
22,000 in hour 2.
I knew.
You knew that
it's going to be tough to get there.
So wait, now first thing is this: the world record is
20,000.
20,000.
500.
500. Yeah. So. But the goal was 22.
The goal was 22,000 to bring awareness. I really wanted to hit that number. I knew it was lofty.
Sure.
Just because I made 20,000 last time, and that was 7 years ago, and I hadn't really trained at all in 7 years. Just because, my life's different now. I've got grandkids, and I never thought that I would do this again, until meeting someone crazy as Pastor Mark and some of those guys, and they have a way of stirring that passion bucket, And so hour 2, I knew, hey, it's going to be a battle to get the old world record, to set a new record. And I really wanted to do that too, for my little boys were there. I still got boys at home. They wanted to see that. And I wanted to do it for the guys rebounding, all the Lifehouse guys, to see me. I wasn't going to quit. I had Pastor Mark there. He was going to throw the ball, throw me through the hoop if I had tried to quit. But
he was not going to let you quit.
When my back went out, I had to double down again on why I was doing it because I was tired. I was emotionally tired. And the flu was starting to swell in my belly. I started to look pregnant hour 17 because I couldn't pee, for some reason. And I stopped sweating. And so I'm still drinking 32 to 48 ounces of water an hour. And it's got to go somewhere, And so my back was out. I look pregnant. I can't bend my wrist at all, and I still have 6 hours to go. And so
finish it. That was around that 3 a.m. Yeah. So we get there, and obviously, I'm working the show. I'm trying to keep everybody entertained, and it was like Kevin Dale would be like, you got to go up in 30 seconds, and I got to think of something to like go off the dome.
It's a lot of material.
So it was a lot of material to try to, so Pastor, I think Jeffrey told me that and it was Pastor Galen. He was like, hey, at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. around that time, I guess you mentioned to him that that's the time where most people would quit, or that's the time that you would think that you would want to quit.
Yeah.
And because, like you said, you mentioned earlier, so I was preaching, that weekend here in Louisiana. So I preached that Thursday night, and then we had to leave first thing Friday, get there, start doing the show, and then this event wasn't going to finish until Saturday at 3 p.m.
Correct.
And then you got to drive 5 hours and try to preach 2 services on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So kind of got late, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, cool. I'm looking at you shooting, and then, okay, do I go to the hotel and take a nap because I'm trying to figure all this stuff out?
You got to stay awake, to preach.
I know. I'm trying to like calculate everything.
Yeah.
And then
What'd you do?
So I'm gonna tell you this. Because Pastor Mark and Jeffrey and I was gonna go. So as we are walking out, something just fell in my spirit. And Pastor Mark looked at me and I was saying, I think I'm gonna stay. And he's like,
really?
Sure? And then Jeffrey looked at me, he's like, sure. I was like, yeah, I think I want to stay. And here's the reason why I wanted to stay. I said, there's moments in life where, the people that you work with on a daily basis, that is great. But then there's some moments in life where you kind of need your brothers. And there's a big difference in that. Even in friendships, there's levels. Even in I looked at Pastor Mark and I said, hey, I think it's okay if I stay. He was like, yeah, because I remember at that time, 3 a.m. wasn't going to be that far off.
And it happened.
It was around I think at that time it was around 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm trying to do all this math. And I was like, and the reason why I told Jeffrey, I told Jeffrey and Pastor Mark, I think one of our faces need to be here. And Pastor Mark was like, all right, well, you stay. And then, and then Jeffrey was like, you know what, I'm going to stay too. I said,
and
I'm
it proved to be pivotal for me.
Yeah, because at 3 a.m. around that time, because I kept going to your brothers, how many shots we made this hour?
Yeah.
And we started slowing down a little bit.
Yep.
It was slowing down. And it was around that 3 a.m. mark. And I went and I saw Pastor Mark came in. Pastor Galen came in.
Yep, they came back.
And then I took like an hour nap on the couch. So I was up. And then I go to Pastor Mark, and Jeff, I'm like, hey, let's rebound for him this hour.
Yep.
And Pastor Mark was like, great. So I go and grab the ball because I wanted to look you right in the face.
Yeah.
So I was grabbing the ball right there looking at you. And Pastor Mark got behind you.
Yep.
And he started speaking life.
And it was the best. It was the best 3 hours that I had, by the way.
Yeah. And then Jeffrey was like just screaming.
Every shot.
And then Pastor Galen was like rebounding. And then Pastor Travis came in. He was like, it was just like, and for me, that was, man, I got chills.
That's the only way I got through it. Because that's the best percentage I had of the whole 24 hours. I ended up shooting 96%.
Absolutely. You made, I think, almost 1,300 shots within that hour. And there was a moment, I don't know how many shots you went. You went so many shots without missing.
Yeah, almost, I think 111, something like that.
And
y'all had a praise break too. There was like praise music going on.
Kevin Dale had praise break music.
I'm looking around, people were dancing.
Oh my goodness.
And next thing you know, I don't even remember that hour, like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. I was just in a zone.
Yeah.
Man. It's like God just picked me up. I had my back pain went away. He had put a lidocaine patch on me. But then all of a sudden, and one of the guys that was there, he's questioned his faith for a long time. And he was telling me, he's like, man, I've never seen anything like that. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what happened. In his mind, he's trying to figure it out. Yeah. We all knew. The Holy Spirit showed up. God started carrying me. My percentage went through the roof.
Absolutely.
And it was that 3 hours that propelled me to be able to get to that. Oh yeah.
It was so amazing, man. You can feel the Holy Spirit moving in the room. I mean, the music was happening. We were shouting.
People were praying.
We were praying and we was dancing. And you know what's funny about that?
Yeah.
A lot of people woke up around that time watching what was happening.
They had
Like,
no
I
idea
know
that
Sarah
3
Brock
hours ago.
had no idea. Like Sarah,
Jesus
like,
just
woke
showed up in the
I
gym,
know.
and he did.
Sarah Brock woke up sending us texts, and like she was
Yeah.
crying.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had other people sending us texts, and I was like, we
Yeah.
randomly they couldn't go to sleep around that hour.
Yeah.
And they was watching what was happening.
Because I was in a lot
And-
of pain,
oh,
too,
yeah.
before
oh, yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
A lot.
But after that, you just like you just started aiming. You
Yeah.
just started aiming.
Yeah, my
And,
percentage was like 89 when I started. And during that section you're talking about, when I was at my worst physically,
absolutely.
my percentage was the best. And I got into a zone, that cannot be described by, it wasn't anything I was
Yeah.
doing, man. It's just God showed up
Yeah.
like he promises to do,
Yeah.
and again, it attributes to what you're saying, the power of brotherhood
Absolutely.
and prayer. And they always say prayers, you pray until something happens, and they just kept doing it, right? It's push,
yes,
right? Pray until
yes.
something. They just kept believing and praying. And one guy that wasn't a believer watching online texted my wife, said, tell that guy rebounding to shut up. We can hear every word he's saying. It's got to be bothering Matt. And Andrew's like, no, it's one of his brothers, man. It's getting him in the zone. He's like on fire right now. And I was. It was crazy.
We were just saying. I think Jeffrey too started. He just started, and then Sam behind you, he started calling out those names of the people
it
that
made it so worth
went
it.
back, and
People are on the waiting list.
Absolutely,
And people, yeah.
One of my most, just favorite moment when Pastor Mark was behind you quoting scriptures.
Yep. Yeah.
He was quoting scriptures. He was just he was just back to back, and it was so powerful. I'm being honest with you.
And you had to be there to understand.
It was a revival.
It was.
It was revival. So
Yeah.
it was amazing, man. It was such a moment to be a part of.
And I'll never forget it, man. I was so thankful for those 3 hours in particular, because it was like a praise break too. People have sent me videos since then, Lifehouse dudes dancing. I mean, we had a revival break out, and I needed every second of it to get me through those crucial hours.
Yeah. The funny thing was, because you couldn't see, because behind you, it was like all the Lifehouse guys, they were like knocked out. They were asleep.
Out.
And dude, that music started, everybody started shouting.
Everybody was a little delirious.
They were so concerned. It was like, what's happening?
Yeah, right. And it was a little, we were delirious. I was delirious. I was, I've been standing there for, at that point, 15 hours, straight. But it was awesome to have the people that we do life with that go to war against hell every day, fighting them demons for Jesus to be victorious in these men's life. Mm-hmm. It was neat to see them on the front of the battle lines that night, lifting my arms up. Amazing. And then the miracle of, I went from, I can't even make 600 in an hour to making 1,200. My percentage is 97%. And that doesn't happen without God showing up.
That was amazing. I was reminded of the man who couldn't, who friends had to carry him to Jesus.
Yeah.
And
that's what happened.
That was that moment where, man, I think you just needed people to pray. They was praying. It was just, man, you don't know until you're in that situation.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most powerful moments I've ever been around in my life. So I'm
glad you got to be a part of it.
So grateful.
And that just goes to show you, man, when God puts a dream in your heart,
Yeah.
As crazy as it may sound, or you think I can never do that in my own strength, man, when you step out in faith and just say, God, I'm going to go and you're going to have to carry me. When he does it, it is an unbelievable feeling.
Come on.
And I just encourage everybody that has that kind of dream in their heart or feel limited. Well, I would try this, but there's no way. There's no better feeling than to put yourself in that position to where it only works if God shows up.
Absolutely.
And then when it happens, you know that Jesus just showed up and put a touch on that, and you'll never forget it.
Come on.
Yeah.
And there was towards the end, and just being transparent.
Yeah.
Because again, every 30 minutes, I'm talking to the people. I'm trying to keep this hype. And there was this moment where I think we all kind of knew, it was like, okay, I don't know if we're going to hit the goal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I knew. That was a sad moment from our heart.
I think everyone, you can feel it. So before that, it was like, because I just announced like, hey, we just hit, we need one more 1,000.
Right.
We just like, so we are going, the hype. And then there's this moment, it's like, we knew like your body was like, and then, so Kevin was like, okay, what we're going to do? So hurry up and just say something. I'm like, hey, cut it off. And then I was like, okay, let me go check on Pastor Matt.
Yeah.
So I went there and I looked at Pastor Mark and he looked at me, and I saw two things in Pastor Mark's eyes.
Yep.
I saw the love and concern for you.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, I'm like, and he's thinking about, okay, is this what he wants to do?
Yeah.
Or have we accomplished the goal?
Yeah.
So there was a concern,
Yep.
but there was also like, I don't want to let him down, but like pulling him back.
Yeah.
And I think he just sat there. He just closed his eyes for a second. Everyone's like, what we gonna do? He just closed his eyes. And I think he came talk to you after that.
He did. He's like, hey, man, set the record. Let's hit 21,000. And honestly, in the back of my mind, I was like, why did I say 22,000? Yeah. I should have just told her about 21,000. But I also realized it's okay to, and it's not failure. I hate using that word.
No.
But I would have never gotten 21,000 without trying for 22. Right? And I know God is going to work on me. That He taught me that lesson for a reason.
Yeah.
To do 21,001, I know that, without having 22,000, I don't hit 21.
Yeah.
I don't come close to it. Right.
Yeah.
So, God's in it for a reason, and we hit that number for a reason. And I learned a lot from it. But yeah, it helped me even this week. I was thinking about something, and I was projecting something, and I thought about the 22,000 number of, man, I was thankful. I'm glad that we tried that.
Come on.
Or we'd have never broken the old record, and had enough to, set a new world record without that lofty of a goal of 22,000.
Come on.
Made it fun.
Come on. And then after that, something else happened where Pastor Mark was like, hey, tell everybody we got a new goal. And that to me was such a powerful moment. And I know sometimes, okay, cool. I think what a lot of people and a lot of leaders can do is adjust.
Yeah.
There is this thing where we all have this thing in our head and the idea and the goal, but there are going to be a moment where we have to adjust, and some people just don't know how to adjust.
Yeah.
And for me, the adjustment that he made was so easy and okay, cool. This is the goal.
Yeah.
And I begin to announce to people, and the joy that everyone has was just amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like, okay, cool. This is the goal we're going for, and we're going to hit this. And
I can tell you where the amazing feeling came from, because God revealed that it wasn't really about 22,000. It was about the journey to get to 22,000. And that's where the success lies, is in the journey, right? God's going to determine the outcome. Yeah. We all want to live to be a certain age. We want to make a certain amount of money, or we want to have this many companies or whatever. And that's real. It's awesome to have that goal. That's only God knows that. But the success is in the journey to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the success was in trying to break a new world record, how it brought us all together. Yeah. People that saw it, and I realized that the only thing that got me through that, because I was very disappointed we weren't going to make 22,000. Sure. I'm very goal driven. Sure. But God reminded me that, hey, the success is in the journey. And that's
not the destination.
Right. It's in the journey. It's in all the hours of training, and it's whoever's watching this from around it's the journey that we're on.
Come on.
And so it's the journey that motivates me, and that's why I want to encourage everybody to be a part. Man,
it's good.
Ask God to help you get on that journey for whatever it is in your life that you love to do. I think that's what stirs the passion inside of us. You do something that you love, to do for somebody that you love, and let God determine the outcome. But I'm telling you, it's in that journey is where you're refined, you're strengthened. That's where the real success is. Yeah. I'll tell you one more story. I do a lot of chaplain work for the NBA. Yeah. The Pacers, the Pelicans, the Birmingham Squadron, which is the G League team of the NBA. Yeah. And all those guys will tell you when they finally get that big contract and they get the $100 million, which is what they're all gunning for, the 3-year, $120 million contract. When they get it, they're never satisfied. Never. And they realized it was the journey of getting to that is where the success is. And I was reminded of that. When I knew I wasn't going to hit 22,000, I was like, oh, but it was the journey.
So good.
So.
And we're going to close on this. This is where I cried. Yeah. Like the last few shots. Yeah. I forgot Fred. Yeah. Your coach.
Yeah, my trainer.
Your trainer, he moved to everyone.
Yeah.
And your family came.
Yeah.
and start giving.
I've already
handing
cried
you-
once during the
I know,
podcast, so I don't
know.
want to cry again. But yeah, that was very
in
moving
tear.
for me. My
What-
grandson's handing me
yeah.
the ball. Yeah.
What did that mean to you?
It meant the world because there was a time in my life when nobody wanted to be around me. When I was living alone in an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment, and I'd burnt down every bridge, and everybody that I loved I'd hurt and wounded at some point, to now be them handing me a ball to break another world record, God's redemption,
Yeah.
God's grace, and seeing my daughters there, who are my best friends today.
Yeah.
You know, 3 of my best friends are my married daughters because God's done that. You know, our family's super close, and that wasn't a possibility years ago. But through God's grace and by the people like Pastor Mark loving on me and giving me a chance to succeed, it meant the world to me to have them. Of course, my wife handed me the ball, and my son. You know, my wife, you know, she was behind this from day one.
Yeah.
You know, we were partners in crime, man. She loves
Yeah.
Lifehouse as much as I do.
Absolutely.
You know, we're in it together. And as a married couple, we didn't know any better. But we, you know, when we first got married, that wasn't her thing. It was my ministry, not
Yeah,
hers, and all
sure.
that stuff. And now we're in it 50-50 together. You know, we're doing ministry together, everything. And so, man, it makes it sweet.
Come on.
Yeah.
How much different has it made since the event for Lifehouse? And, you know,
Man, we getting phone call after phone call of new business partners.
good.
Even yesterday, I sat down at one of the largest steel companies in Alabama because of that event. He heard about it, and we're sitting down. They're going to hire our men now, and the different donations that have come in, or the different opportunities, you know, for Lifehouse made it so worth it. You know, the reach that's gone to families beyond the Lifehouse family members, just like the people in the community who have been touched by seeing some dude shoot for 24 hours.
Yeah,
you know, and you know, that's just made it so worth it.
And that was the goal.
The journey, man.
That was the goal.
That was the goal. Yeah.
Man, I came here and I was telling everyone, obviously I knew you. You came over to my house, made you some breakfast, and
man, that was so good too.
We've
By the
had
way,
a friendship.
yeah.
But man, the respect that I have for you just like went all over the roof. And I'm like, man, this guy here is just amazing.
I've
Just
been
to kinda
blessed,
see,
brother.
Just to kind of see what you endure over the 24 hours for the cause that you believe in. I think that's so powerful. You know, pain, but there was purpose. You know,
A lot of pain.
Yeah.
Well, I love you, man. I love what you're doing. Watching you, God, increase your platform with the students here and just your gifts. And man, it's an honor to be on the podcast today. Absolutely. I love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Awesome.